Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Bible Discoveries, the weekend show. My name is Corie. I'm joined by my husband, Matlock. Hey, Matlock.
Hello again. And if you're new to here with us, we are at Bible Discovery, read through the Bible in 1 year. And this week's reading was Jeremiah 49 to Ezekiel 11, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, that's
you are
right.
correct.
Oh my goodness,
Nailed
that's close
it.
one. I was like, wait, is it 48?
No,
49.
you nailed it. You got it.
Anyways, yes, which includes the book, the very short book of Lamentations.
Yes.
And we do have a question on Lamentations today.
Nice.
Yes. So Corie,
Mm-hmm.
let's just kick things off.
Sure.
I will ask you the first question. Historical question.
Mm-hmm.
How did Jeremiah die?
Okay, well, I can conclusively say that we don't know for sure how the prophet Jeremiah died. The book of Jeremiah ends with Jeremiah off in Egypt, right? He tells the people not to go to Egypt, but they do go to Egypt and they forcibly take Jeremiah with them. They're fleeing the wrath of Nebuchadnezzar because Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed Judah and Jerusalem. He had installed a puppet governor, and then that governor was assassinated. So everyone was afraid that Nebuchadnezzar was going to send another army down, wipe everyone out, and resettle the population, the area with conquered peoples from other places, which he could have done. But they asked Jeremiah to ask God. Jeremiah got a message from God saying, don't worry about it, stay here. God's going to be with us. He's going to protect us. And the people were like, not so much. Let's just be extra careful here and go to Egypt. So they went to Egypt against God's word, and they forcibly brought Jeremiah with them, and that's where the trail goes cold. We don't really know anything else about what happened to Jeremiah. However, there is an early Christian tradition that Jeremiah was stoned in Egypt by those Jewish exiles. We don't know if it's true. This is quoted in the 2nd century church father Tertullian, and it's quoted by some other early church fathers as well, but all referencing back to a singular source, I believe, from the 1st century. So it is just tradition. It is what was thought to have happened to him, at least in the 2nd century AD, but we don't know for sure.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I have nothing else to say. That's good.
All right,
I like Tertullian.
Yeah.
He's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting church father. Okay, Lamentations question for you, Matlock. Here's
Sure.
our one question in Lamentations. And this is based off of something in Lamentations chapter 3. And Jay asks, how can God have a steadfast love that never ceases and yet destroy them? Because remember, Lamentations is a whole book that was written lamenting the destruction of Judah and Jerusalem.
Right. So let me read chapter 3, verse 22 to 23.
Good idea.
The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is your portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. Okay. So, in relation to this verse, how can God have a steadfast love that never ceases, and yet he destroys Israel? Okay, for one, God warned them that if you turn evil and you do evil things, I will destroy you. But if you follow my word and you obey my command, I will not. Now, throughout this whole process, he's always giving hope, saying, I will redeem you.
Mm-hmm.
I will take you out of this land. But this is what necessarily has to happen because of what you did. It's kind of like if a kid steals a cookie out of the cookie jar from someone else's house, it's like he's naturally going to have to get in trouble. If he doesn't get in trouble, the kid's going to grow up, and he does that his whole life and never gets in trouble. The kid's going to be a complete monster. So my point is that this is, in a sense, it seems rather harsh, but in the greater context of eternity, it is not so harsh because God's disciplining those he loves for their benefit, which is a weird way to put it. It's like, how, that sounds like a harsh discipline. Well, it's the God who created the universe. And so he gives us, hey, if you follow this path, you'll do well. You do it this way, like, it won't be well for you because God's impartial and he's just. He lets it rain in the wicked and the just. So that's just the way it is. So besides that, he's disciplining those he loves is a big part of it. He has a concept of the afterlife, knowing that life does not begin, end here. It keeps going, right? And specifically in the case of Israel, they had a choice and they kind of made their own bed.
Yeah, because we forget that this judgment came after hundreds of years of rebellion against God.
Yes, and God had patience, right? And again, he's showing love because you are the son, the grandsons and the ancestors of David, because you're their ancestors, listen to Moses, because you are the ancestors of Abraham, and Abraham was called by the promise, right? I will therefore keep you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's still like protecting those who are faithful, those who love him, right? And vice versa. Anyways, so I think that is the quick answer, even though I kind of did it poorly, but that's the quick answer to that question. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, like these verses that you read, like his mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. And that's kind of Jeremiah's point, where it's like destruction does come, judgment does come, punishment does come.
Right.
But so comes the morning.
Right.
And it's like this punishment, this judgment isn't the end of it.
Right.
It is this penalty for the sin of idolatry and apostasy in Israel.
Yeah.
But yet in this destruction that was so awful, there is still hope. And there is still hope because there is a remnant that God left,
That's
not
right.
only in the land, but also in exile that he promised he would bring back. So there was already those future hopes and future promises. So yeah, that's part of the nature of God, that he is just, but he is also so full of mercy and this steadfast love that he has a way of reconciling people to himself, even through discipline and punishment.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know you see this discipline also in the New Testament with, which I think is interesting, when people were doing improperly taking communion.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul's like, and because you were doing it this way, you people were dying, right? When you look at kind of what he's saying there, Paul later on says God disciplines those he loves, basically. And to paraphrase the context. Anyways, God's killing people for taking communion properly for disciplinary actions.
Right.
Which is a wild idea. Because
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh, death is so harsh. But it's like, actually, no, ultimately, everyone's going to die. And so you have this different concept here of what discipline means for a father, obviously, to his son, but also for our spiritual father to his spiritual sons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, he's trying to refine us to get us on the right path that's not going to destroy our souls. And it's because that is a much harsher consequence than stealing cookies out of the cookie jar, if you know what I'm saying, like for children,
Mm-hmm.
or for just a physical discipline. So spiritual consequence is much harsher than a physical one. So it warrants harsher physical consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand the ramifications of what it means.
Definitely. And we today are still benefiting from this destruction of Judah and Jerusalem.
Right.
It's recorded in the Bible for our benefit and for the benefit of the many generations that have come after this. Where, Jeremiah himself earlier on in his book, he's encouraged people to, like, when they come back to God and they're like, well, where do we even start? What do we even do? To look back to the ancient ways. What he means by that, to the ancient road posts and road marks. What he means by that is look back on what God has recorded of his relationship with humanity and learn from it so that you know how to take steps in your own life to move forward.
Right.
And so we have the benefit of seeing God interacting with his people of Israel and Judah, and we can see what the consequences of a life poorly lived are, of a life rebelling against God is, and ultimately it is destruction, physical and spiritual, and no one wants that. Like, no one should want that. And so then we are able to learn from that. So this is a part of God's mercy, bringing judgment on those who deserved the judgment, but also recording it for us so that we can learn via their experiences, right? I mean, you look at the book of Proverbs and it says that it's written literally for making the unexperienced wise. Like, there's some some wisdom that we're going to have to learn because we're human by experiencing it and by making poor decisions. But there's other knowledge and wisdom that we can gain from really carefully paying attention to the experiences of those who came before us and learning from their mistakes and learning from their successes and then taking that and moving forward. So this judgment, believe it or not, is a part of God's loving kindness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. All right, Corie, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next question.
Sure.
Corie, the wheels. Where does Ezekiel now?
Ezekiel.
What are these wheels? Now, in Hebrew, the question is, what are the wheels in Ezekiel's vision?
Right.
Now, in Hebrew, this word is aphan, or aphanim. It was just the plural version of a phone. So, but, you know, people also think of cherubim, right? The seraphim, they're kinds of angels. You often see on the internet, there's these wheels with eyes, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Corie? What are these wheels?
Okay, so the wheels, according to Ezekiel chapter 1, are a part of the body of these living creatures that seem to be cherubim that are a part of the entourage of God's throne that is like a chariot throne. So it's like a movable throne, the movable presence of God, okay? And so these living creatures that appear to be cherubim, they have, when you read it in Ezekiel 1, it literally just says, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the four of them. And he talks about what they looked like and what their construction was like. And he said, their construction being as if it were a wheel within a wheel. And when they went in any of their four directions without turning as they went. The rims were full of eyes all around. It's a wild description.
Right.
It's a wild description. What were they? I mean, guys, I've never seen a heavenly vision like Ezekiel. I don't think that I would do a better job at describing what I saw. I think I probably would do a worse job at describing what it is that I saw. I'm pretty convinced of that. But we know that the wheels were a part of these living creatures. It seems to represent, at the very least, their ability to move on the earth as well as in the spiritual world.
So they're UFOs.
No, they're identified. They are identified. They are living creatures. They are cherubim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to like what is the substance of them. We don't know. Ezekiel doesn't know. He says that they're like beryl in their appearance. I don't even know what beryl looks like. I know it's semi-precious stone. That's all I got, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a part of the living creatures. And what I think is so interesting, like this pops up again, but it emphasizes this concept that God's physical presence can meet with humanity wherever they are, can meet. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but
yeah, they're described also in Ezekiel 10.
Yep.
As wheels beside the cherubim.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it says that the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels, so it's like it's a part of their body.
Yes.
It's not like it's not like a false appendage or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like us riding a bike, like the cherubim riding these wheels. It's actually a part of their body.
Right. As for the wheels, they were called, in my hearing, the whirling wheels.
Yeah, it's still not helpful.
And every one had four faces. That's what they're called, the whirling wheels. And
I know.
The first face was the face of a cherub. Second face was a human face. The third face of a lion. And the fourth face of an eagle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a cherub has a distinct face. Of the cherubs that he's seeing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's different from a human face.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they're like, so that's
cherubs,
debatable. So because cherubs, for example, when they're later on in Ezekiel 40, when cherubs are carved into the temple, the perfect temple of Ezekiel 40, we see that the cherubs have a face of a man and a face of a lion.
Yes.
So just saying a face of a cherub, does that mean man? Or does that mean lion?
Or does it mean something else?
Does it mean, some people think bull?
Right. So I think
there's a lot of unknowns here.
Well, yeah, because I think that personally, a cherub is more of like a position, not necessarily a species.
Sure.
Just like the word angel is a messenger, not necessarily a species.
Sure.
But it could be used to refer to the heavenly hosts, basically. Anyways, I think it's a status. So in that case, yeah, I have no issues with that. Okay.
Unclear.
Yeah, unclear.
Overall, we don't know. We don't know what these are. They're part of the body of these living creatures.
Right.
That seems to represent how they move.
So what's interesting is that I actually think how YouTube's like, you know, all those YouTube shorts, what actually Ezekiel's, like, these angels actually look like, and then you use like AI to like generate like some sort of like wheel within a wheel. But then they miss the part that it's connected to the cherub, and they just have the wheels. So they kind of like on all these videos.
Right. They just show the wheels with the eyes and the wings, but they're missing the faces.
They're missing everything else. So then it's like, okay, well, right, you kind of, no, it's not the real vision that he had. Anyways, I think it's interesting.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I did a very poor job with that question because I don't know. It's above my pay grade.
Because it's a description question, basically. The question could have been a little bit different,
It's okay.
but that's okay. Corie?
Matlock.
Let's go on.
Matlock. Ezekiel 2-5.
Yeah.
Okay. Why are Ezekiel and Jesus both called the Son of Man?
Okay, so we talked about this before.
We did a little bit, briefly.
Okay, so you told me, which is interesting, that Ezekiel is called Son of Man 93 times.
Yeah, 93 times in the book of Ezekiel. It's like his title.
It's his title.
Like he's referred to. We know he's Ezekiel once.
Yes.
But he's called the Son of Man 93 times.
So okay, first of all, in the New Testament, I'm just going to list the verses. I don't need to read them because we all know that.
Sure.
Matthew 16:27, Mark 14:21, Luke 7:34, and John 3:13. The title, the Son of Man, right? We obviously see of Jesus represents his humanity, which it's pretty clear. But also too, we have to remember the Hebrew, what it means man. Whenever they hear the word man, they think Adama,
right?
Which is Adam.
Yep.
Right. So it's like a double entendre. So you're the son of Adam, right? It's like this idea. So you're truly man, but also son of ground, son of earth, like in a sense. But that's a secondary
for sure. Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, besides that. Very interesting. So that is his position to represent his humanity. In a sense here, we have with Ezekiel is that it's more so connected to him being a son of the earth because this is where the Adama really, I think, helps here. Because he's having all these eschatological heavenly visions, not just eschatological, but heavenly visions, right? Eschatological is to come. But all these heavenly visions of things that are in the supernatural world, the whirling wheels, right? All these cherubim. So calling him a son of man or son of Adama, son of earth, right, is in hyper contrast from something that's terrestrial versus celestial. So you have a contrast there. So you have a title of the son of the earth versus the heavens. So I think that's part of it. In terms of you said, which is interesting, that Daniel is also referred to once
by an angel in Daniel 8.
But again, that correlates also with this idea of it being like he's having all these heavenly visions, right? So again, I think it's this relationship to being of the ground and of the earth versus of, right?
Yeah, it's like their status as human because like remember in their culture, Ezekiel was the son of his father.
Yes.
So when you were introducing yourself, you would say, "Hi, I'm Matlock, son of Peter."
Right.
Right? You wouldn't say, "I'm Matlock, son of man," because that's ambiguous. It's like, okay, great, thanks. We know you're a human, but where is your status within the human structure?
Yes.
Right? But in heaven, your status in the human structure doesn't matter. It just matters that you are human.
That's right.
Right?
Right. So I think that's probably the best way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Besides that, I think that's the answer.
Yeah. Definitely. So then Jesus being called
just means his
Son
humanity as opposed to because he's both human nature and divine nature. And because of that, you need to emphasize one, right? You emphasize the Son of Man is emphasizing his humanity, right? Son of God is emphasizing his divinity.
Yes.
So you have that dual edge there, and that's important.
It's really important because he is this arbitration for humanity. Right? So he's got to be a part of humanity in order to be able to redeem humanity, which is really interesting.
And in a sense, Ezekiel, like you have this mediation role with the Son of Man titles a little bit.
Yeah, being brought into heaven.
Yes, so you're like the ambassador of, in a sense.
Essentially, and Daniel too, because Daniel's receiving, Daniel in Daniel chapter 8 specifically, where he's called Son of Man by the angel who's about to interpret the vision for him. He's like, "Oh, Son of Man. Do you understand that the vision you just saw is about the end times? Do you get it? Do you get it, Daniel?" Like, he's like, oh, Son of Man. It's kind of like, oh, bless your heart. It's kind of like that, but not really. I get, it makes me smile to think of it like that. That's how I remember it. But Daniel 8, he's receiving this vision of the future of mankind. It's important that he is a part of humanity. He is acting as an ambassador for humanity because he's going to take the message to humanity.
That's right.
Yeah. Very
Corie,
cool. Yes.
We are on the very last question.
Already. We just plowed through these questions so quickly.
I know. So.
What? Is it a doozy? What's going on?
The way you're
looking at me, you like took a deep breath, you blinked dramatically.
Yeah, I'm just going to read it. Okay. And then we can both go at it.
Deal.
But truth be told, it's pretty short. So we're going to have to just stretch this out. Okay. Ezekiel 11.
Yes.
If the flesh is always seen as evil in the New Testament, Why does God give Ezekiel a heart of flesh? Seems counterintuitive. This is from Matthew.
Okay.
So
this is a crossing. The problem here that you've got, Matthew, is that you're crossing metaphors. You are crossing metaphors here.
And yes, so there's a mixed metaphor, but also the flesh is not always seen as evil.
Yeah.
That's important. But continue.
Yeah. So like when the Apostle Paul uses like the fleshly self versus the heavenly self, he's referring to our sin nature. So he also uses darkness and light, right? You once were sons of darkness, but now you're sons of light. So walk in the light, don't walk in the dark. He uses this as symbols to help us understand we had an old life in which we were enslaved to sin, and now we have a new life in which we're enslaved to God, which is all goodness, all righteousness, all love, all of the good things. But in Ezekiel, when God refers to a heart of flesh, this is referencing back to, like, for example, Deuteronomy in the law. It's referencing back to Isaiah and Jeremiah, where they talk about the people having hearts of stone against God, meaning unwilling to change, unwilling to yield to God, proud, stubborn, hard, not willing to move or change, okay? So God giving a heart of flesh means one that can be impacted, one that can be spoken to,
Right.
one that can be changed, right? So it's like hard heart versus soft heart. So yeah, in Ezekiel, heart of flesh doesn't mean heart of sin. It means a heart that's able to be changed, that's alive, that's beneficial, right?
Yes.
So it's just that you have to look at the context for the metaphor and for the image in each place where you find it.
Right.
And sometimes there's like a metaphor all throughout the Bible that's the same, like light and darkness. It's always a metaphor for good and evil, for sin and righteousness. But there's other metaphors and images that are used differently depending on the context.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Okay. So because we know when God created the world, he didn't make flesh evil. But flesh gets corrupted by sin. So the flesh in and of itself, it would be very Gnostic of us to say the flesh in and of itself, the material world, is evil.
Definitely.
So, and that just leads to a whole bunch of weird heresies and wrong beliefs. So the point here is that when Paul's talking about don't live in the flesh, he's talking about your directionality and your goals. So like, if I were to be like, I'm doing everything to earn a whole bunch of money so I can have a nice life now, the direction of my heart is all based on this world only. So for my upbuilding, and this just leads to sin because everything you do should be directed towards God. God is goodness, God is truth, God is love, God is everything that we actually value in life. It's everything that's meaningful in life. And therefore, that's what should direct your motivations and your goals, and everything should work through God for God's benefit, for good, right? For truth. In this case, doing things for the flesh is like just doing everything for this life now. Just to build up, I want to get a whole bunch of money so I can have nice cars and do a whole, and that's where it's all leading towards. So long story short, that would say is there. So a lot of it's about direction and where it's heading towards. So I that is it. Like I don't really know what else to add to this. If we want to just go on a whole spiel. Besides making this the shortest episode we've ever done.
Literally the shortest.
Yeah,
we should have plugged in another question or something.
Yeah. No, it's true. What shall we do? Well, Corie, what do you think?
I don't know. I like, should we talk about different metaphors of the Bible? Should we talk more about Ezekiel?
No.
No, should we just move on?
I think we just end the episode.
You're like, no, let's give everyone a short weekend, a short Saturday. I mean, that's fair enough. There is stuff that we do need to talk about, though. We talked about it on the last program, but we are looking for questions related to the New Testament. The New Testament is coming up really, really quickly, but Matlock and I have to get ahead on some of our episodes because I'm going to be taking maternity leave sometime in November, probably halfway through November, which is exciting for us personally. We're adding to our little crew of Bobechkos. So yeah, maternity leave coming up in November, but we want to make sure that we finish off the year before I go on maternity leave. So if you have any questions related to the New Testament and even the end of the New Testament, that would be great. What else?
Yeah, subscribe to my wife's channel.
It's really our channel. It is my name, but yes,
it's your channel. Yeah,
yeah,
I tag along. It's your channel.
Tag along.
Yeah, I don't have a channel. I don't have a channel. If I make a channel, right?
Then we'll talk about that.
Then we'll talk about that
another day. But yes,
Another day.
Okay. Subscribe, share this video, give it a like, thumbs up.
Right.
Let us know what you think in the comment section down below about these questions about Ezekiel. What do you think about these 4 living creatures? What do you think the meanings of some of the descriptions of their physical presence is like? I'd be super curious to see.
What is the meaning of the wheels?
Yes, the meaning of the wheels specifically and all of that. But yes, for now, I'm just going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have a really great weekend. I hope you enjoy continuing to read and study through the Bible this week. Until next time, happy reading and happy studying.